Welcome to Progressive Short Takes. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. But Jimmy Dore has famously proposed that what the squad ought to do, and what AOC as part of the squad should do, is to withhold their support for Nancy Pelosi in the race for the speakership until she agrees to have a floor vote on the Medicare for All bill. His proposal has created all kinds of controversy on the web, but people are extremely excited about it. What I wanted to raise was the key question of whether doing this would be worth the risk that the squad members would be taking. So, what I want to do now is to go over that risk very carefully, with some care. I don't know whether that's been done yet, so bear with me. Here's the question, but formalized in another way. Is the risk involved in withholding support from Nancy Pelosi worth the benefit that is likely to be gained from that? And my answer is that depends on what you get. Depends on what you get. So let's consider that question. Okay. First, there are the risks of withholding votes for Speaker from Nancy Pelosi for any purpose at all, including this one. Then one has to consider the benefits. Then one has to evaluate the risks as opposed to the benefits. And then one needs to arrive at a conclusion. Now, I'm going to reveal that I think the squad should actually replace Pelosi. Hashtag replace Pelosi. That's the campaign that I'm involved in right now on Twitter. Okay. So, let's go more deeply into these points. First, there's the issue of the risk of getting Kevin McCarthy as Speaker as opposed to Nancy Pelosi. From my point of view, the risk is none, so long as the squad makes sure Nancy Pelosi is stuck at 214 votes and the total quorum is more than 427 votes. I say more than 427 votes because a speaker gets selected based on whether they have a majority of the votes of the quorum at the time of the speaker vote. I'm assuming here that there are going to be 222 Democratic votes and 213 Republican votes. They total 427 votes. So if the 8 votes of the squad are excluded and are held back, then but Nancy Pelosi would have a plurality of 214 to 213. But since there would be a quorum of 435 votes, she would need 218 votes to become the Speaker. So with 8 votes, the squad can ensure through planning that this happens on every ballot for Speaker until Pelosi decides she's had enough and drops out of consideration. Now, this might be 2, 3, 4, 5 ballots, but she will eventually drop out of consideration when it's seen by everybody that the squad opposition is firm and unrelenting. When she does drop out, others can step forward who now won't defend Nancy Pelosi out of fear or a sense of loyalty created by long-term relations they have with her. So, what are the risks? What can they lose if they lose and she still wins? Because let's say some of them fold and join her. The pressure on them is going to be tremendous. We have to keep that in mind. I mean, they're going to get smeared by the mainstream media. They're going to get smeared by other Congress people. They're going to be smeared by Pelosi in Congress. If they lose, Nancy Pelosi will banish them to congressional Siberia. That means they will get no committee assignments of importance. They'll be ostracized by the establishment Democrats. They'll get no support, financial support from the DCCC or any other kind of support. They'll get the smallest offices in the House. They will get no congressional perks. They'll be primaried in 2022 by candidates getting DCCC and donor support. And of course, they will risk losing their seats because not being on committees, not having an influence on committees, bargaining power, they will get less for their constituents. Now, they already are experiencing most of these disadvantages because of their opposition to the establishment. So when you look at the incremental risk of these things happening to them, that risk is relatively small. But where the risk becomes important is because after a term in the Congress, people kind of getting used to them, okay, and their opposition, they've been kind of expecting that their status within the caucus, the Democratic Party, will be improved in their second term. And maybe even if they can hang in there for a third term, they will get some more influence in Congress. So if they go against Nancy Pelosi and they lose, they're throwing out this possibility of improvement. Now, how good a possibility that is another question, because AOC, for one, was just blocked from getting a very important committee assignment on the Energy and Commerce Committee due to her opposition to the establishment. She was punished by Pelosi because Pelosi wanted to demonstrate the power she had. She wanted to make a demonstration, make an example, okay, of AOC, and she engineered that. Okay, she used other people who support her, okay, to engineer that. She also blocked Sylvia Garcia of Texas, okay, who's another progressive, from an important committee seat she was in line for, okay, in order to please some of the centrists who did not want Sylvia Garcia on that particular committee. So here we go with the benefits, okay, of a Medicare for All floor vote alone. You have the benefit of making members go on record, exposing them to a primary, okay, if they vote against Medicare for All. You have the possibility of possibly augmenting progressive numbers in Congress down the road as a result of the primaries. You possibly weaken the Democratic establishment in 2023 and the Republican establishment as well, okay, if still more progressives, really progressive people, can win in 2022. You show your constituents that you are fighting for them. They know that you've taken a big risk for them. You get media exposure. People in the mainstream media will be talking about you. They'll be smearing you but they'll be talking about you. And in the alternative media, you'll get very, very favorable media exposure, which will help you with your races in 2022. People will remember you've done this courageous thing. And finally, you're going to get squad empowerment within the caucus, because if you get a Medicare for All floor vote, you will have shown that if you exercise your power, you can be successful. Well, what about the benefits of the alternative proposal, which my group is making, to replace Pelosi? What are the benefits of that alternative for the squad and for the progressives in general in Congress? Well, first, a new speaker would be more open to the policy positions of the squad. How can they ensure that? Because they would be able to negotiate with a candidate for speaker over the specific floor votes that they feel they need, that they would like to have, and they would be able to get agreements from a candidate seeking their support, because that candidate would know they couldn't get in without the support of the squad. So a new speaker would be more open to congressional progressive caucus positions, which are a little bit more to the right than the squad positions are, on many things. So it would be a benefit to the squad that some of the CPC positions would get considered and would get votes and perhaps would win. That would help the squad, even though it's indirect help to the squad. Thirdly, a new candidate for speaker could be negotiated with for far more than Nancy Pelosi would give, such as, again, floor votes for multiple priorities, including Medicare for All, including the Green New Deal, and others. So this proposal is the Medicare for All floor vote, but plus proposal. It doesn't take away from a Medicare for All the floor vote, but adds to it a lot more things that are valuable. Rule changes, such as the elimination of the pay goal rule, which handcuffs the progressives in Congress who want to do something for the economy and for the people. Next, good committee positions for the squad. These could be negotiated with the candidate beforehand. Then, decent offices and other perks for the squad. And also all of the other benefits mentioned for Medicare for All alone. So the benefits I've mentioned here, plus the other benefits, for Medicare for All, are available if you support the hashtag Replace Pelosi campaign. So I think that's the campaign you want to support, rather than the squad trading, withholding their votes for Medicare for All alone. That is too little benefit. Are the likely benefits coming from using withheld votes for Medicare for All floor vote really worth the risk the squad will be taking? Keep in mind the sacrifices squad members took to get into the House. They raised a lot of money from the grassroots. There were a lot of people who sacrificed in order to get them in. The squad members worked very, very hard on the ground, to get in. Keep in mind the risks we're asking them to take, and that the risks are the same for Medicare for All benefits as they are for the Replace Pelosi benefits. That's very important. They're taking the same risks in the case of either campaign. Nancy Pelosi will retaliate by sending them or keeping them in congressional Siberia. The punishment is going to be the same. It's not going to be lighter for not trying to replace Pelosi. How do we know this? We know this because in 2018, the squad voted for Pelosi. They did not oppose her. They voted for her. And yet, when it came to the appointment to the Energy and Commerce Committee, Nancy Pelosi engineered the defeat of AOC in favor of Kathleen Rice, a right-wing Democrat who voted against Pelosi in 2018. So Pelosi did not punish her by appointing AOC, okay, or getting AOC appointed. She punished AOC in anticipation of the possible harm that AOC might do now to her. So that's the way things are evaluated. So it's not going to be a lesser punishment for bargaining only for Medicare for all benefits, as opposed to bargaining to replace Pelosi, because you're going to get the Medicare for all benefits plus all the other benefits that I outlined if successful. The risk is the same, but the benefits are much greater. So the reward to risk, the ratio, is much greater for a replace Pelosi campaign. Also, keep in mind the full list of likely benefits from using withheld votes to block Pelosi and then to negotiate with her potential successor. So finally, let's conclude. Since the risk of withholding squad votes are the same, whether the squad bargains for Medicare for all or for replacing Pelosi, while the benefits are much greater for replacing Pelosi, it seems clear that if the squad withholds its votes at all, it should be bargaining to replace Pelosi and realize all the likely benefits of that effort rather than bargaining only for a Medicare for all floor vote. Based on this comparison, I think, quote, the might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb. That meme applies here. You might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb, because the punishment is going to be the same. It's going to be getting sent or kept in congressional Siberia. So the squad should, I believe, replace Pelosi by blocking her and then actually negotiating with her successor or with a candidate who wants to be her successor. Do you agree? How can you deny the logic of this position? So that's all for this progressive short take. But please do hang in there with us and support our campaign on Twitter, #ReplacePelosi.